And we're live. Welcome, everyone, to this episode of the Zoom Out Show. Today, I have the pleasure of having Joe Hart here. Joe is an organization psychologist. He's also a registered psychologist and the author of True Perspective: Why Leading with the Truth Always Wins. Welcome, Joe.
Thank you very much. Great to be here.
Thanks. Joe is also a leadership guru, like a leadership development thought leader and executive coach. So, Joe, tell us about leadership. Why do you think? What do you think leadership is?
Yeah, look, it's a big question. It's a simple one, but I think leadership is all about awareness, and so the level of leadership we demonstrate is a direct reflection of how aware we are. And what I mean by that is being able to take in experience and be conscious about what you do with that experience. So it reflects then a choice that you get to make in terms of the awareness that you have, but then what do you do with that? So I think a great leader is somebody that goes through an experience, whether it be positive or negative. It enables them to gain more awareness as a person, and through that awareness, they make a conscious choice to align who they want to be in the world with how they're being experienced in the world. So there's that direct alignment, and it's conscious and it's positive. So I think, that's maybe not a simple definition, but to go back to it, leadership is awareness. Yeah.
I really like that, and it kind of makes because being aware and making a choice with your awareness is something that everyone does, not necessarily a manager in an organization or a boss or someone. So it means kind of everyone is a leader. Like there's a spectrum of leadership. Is this true?
100%. Yeah. So leadership is not about the title. It's not about the status. It's not about how much money you have. It really is about what you do with your experience and what you do with your awareness. So even if you're a child, I'd encourage you to actually take that awareness and make a conscious choice about who you are and how you want to be in the world, and create a legacy that's meaningful. That's leadership, in my opinion.
Yeah, great, loving it. So this awareness part, I think it's really important, especially that self-awareness. Of course, it's awareness of yourself and everything else as well. It reminds me of a program I did. I did an emotional intelligence program a few years ago, and we had to take a survey. It was a Corn Ferry survey. You may be familiar. They are
Yep.
an HR assessment. Yeah, perfect.
Mhm.
So it was called Emotional and Social Competency Inventory, made by Daniel Goleman, and
Yep.
it was pretty much feedback, seeking for feedback from your peers, from your boss or leader, or whoever is above you, from the
Yep.
people who report to you, and from family and friends members as well. And that's what you talk about as well. Seek feedback from everyone, not just your
Totally.
colleagues, right? Yeah.
100%. Yeah, I mean that's a 360 assessment, and
Yes.
I think 360 assessments are fantastic. They're a great
Mhm.
tool to be able to get that external feedback, and a
Mhm.
brilliant way to actually demonstrate to your key stakeholders, the people that you work most closely with,
Mhm.
that you're serious and you want this feedback to become more aware, and to enable them to experience you in a way that's aligned and the way you intend to be experienced. So
Mhm.
yeah, I mean, they have their challenges, and I think some are done well, some are not done well, and we can talk about that aspect if you want.
Mhm.
But yeah, I've got an opinion, of course,
Yeah,
about how I think
definitely.
they should be done.
Would love to hear your
But
opinion. Definitely.
sure. So I mean, I do talk about it in the book as well, but I think 360 assessments are best done when they're facilitated, and they're
Mhm.
facilitated by the coach. I think it's a bit much for somebody to self-administer a 360 and then digest the results in
Mhm.
isolation or independence. It would
So you
take
mean one-on-one in person, right? Not a survey.
correct.
Mhm.
Look, I do a combination. Sometimes it's
Okay.
just time prohibitive to interview
Mhm.
50 people if you've got that many stakeholders. But I do a combination. So there's quantitative and qualitative. But I think the richness of that information that comes through when you actually sit with one of the key stakeholders, and you dig a little bit deeper beneath the surface, I think that's where the truth sits. The quantitative data is how generalizable that truth is, and you see it. It's a pattern, right? And you see that come out in the data, and that's interesting. But I think the truth and the real meaning that you can convey when you're delivering that feedback as a coach comes from those conversations that you have with people.
Yeah.
And sure, it takes extra time. And I've had people say, "Oh, that's not a way to do it because it's inefficient." I said, "No, actually,
But
I
it's
enjoy those
effective, right?
conversations. It's effective, but it's powerful because if I'm sitting there with a 50-page report that has all sorts of numbers in it,
Mhm.
and sure, we could talk about it for days and days and days. I think what's really important is to be able to get to the crux of what's really going on for this individual, and enable them to feel the truth. Right, leading with the truth always wins. Yes, it
Yeah.
might be difficult to hear, but I think that's the part that we need to go to. If you're afraid of it, let's go there. Let's have that conversation.
Yeah, absolutely. So you had a
Mm,
few really good points there. You know, how you ended, that's brilliant. If you're afraid of it, there is probably something there to explore,
always,
that's a good yeah, good
always.
indication. Absolutely. So let's talk about that in a second, but also you know the absolutely agree that the qualitative data here is probably more important. Doesn't matter if it's efficient or not. It's We can make it efficient, but even if it's not
Mm,
efficient, it's effective, right? Because
yeah,
that's where the valuable information, those nuggets of gold, are hidden. Um,
totally, totally.
so how does a bad 360 look like?
I think a bad 360 is one that is only quantitative. So you don't actually talk to your key stakeholders before
Hmm.
you ask for their opinion and their feedback. So you literally send out a link, they respond to it, and it might go to 15, 20, 30 people, whatever it might be, and that's it. That's the only interaction you have with them. You might send them an email prior, or the system that you're using might say, "Hey, there's a 360 coming. It's really important that you respond to it," and they respond, and that's it. There's no
Hmm.
enrollment. There's no why, or why are you asking for my feedback? Well, why is
Hmm.
that important to you? It feels more like
Yeah.
a process, and I think
Yes.
when with your
Check the
coach you've had
box.
a conversation, because I've had people say, "Well, would it be okay if I put my wife or my husband in as a key stakeholder?" And I'd say, "Well, yeah, absolutely. Let's talk about why you want to do that and why is that
Hmm.
meaningful." Or other
Hmm.
times where they're saying, "Well, I don't really want to put this person in because I feel like they're going to have a negative response, and I sort of know what they're going to say." I'm like, "Okay, cool. You may know, but this
At
is
the
not about
qualitative.
correct. This is not about a good score, right? This is
Hmm.
about the truth, and I think the
Yes.
truth is more important." So most 360s unfortunately get perceived as an
Hmm.
evaluative process, right? I'm being
Hmm.
evaluated, I'm being ranked, I'm being looked at and scrutinized based on this score,
Hmm.
which obviously creates a sense of wanting to impression manage and make it better, and that's
Yeah.
just really ineffective in my opinion. It gives it a bad name. Also, the experience isn't nice, but when it's
Yeah.
facilitated in a supportive, powerful way, and the intention is to enable this person to be better through the awareness that they're going to glean from this, but also the commitment that they've made to actually do something with that feedback. Right, so
Hmm.
they're going to action something out of this, and that's why they've asked this stakeholder for their time and their effort and their feedback and their truth. It's like, okay,
Hmm.
you give it to me, I'm going to do something with it. I don't know what that is yet, but I'd
Yeah.
really like to find out. And so doing it in that way, I think is really really powerful. As long as it's embraced, if it's rejected
Yeah.
and someone doesn't want to do it, really, then of course we can't force them to.
Absolutely. I think you had a few key points to unpack, and it was really good. So one of them was the person who I said, I know what he's gonna say, so why should I ask for his feedback,
Mm,
right? Because every person, when we communicate, we think we're communicating, but we're not really communicating because each of us come with our own perspective, our own biases, and say my colleague tells me something. I know you're saying that because that project is not going the way that you like it to go, for example, right?
mm,
But there are assumptions there, right? And if you have a coach, as you said, to facilitate that, be it in person or a survey, but it's facilitated by a coach, the coach could have a more neutral perspective
Yeah.
and can dig a bit deeper to find the truth, right? And that would be a different conversation. Then there may be a lot of valuable information in that feedback, which I probably
Mm,
don't want to hear.
mm,
But if that feedback is delivered, assessed, and analyzed and delivered by a coach, it could be super valuable for me as well,
yeah.
right?
Absolutely. Yeah, absolutely. And
Mm,
I think that's one of the hardest things to do for all of us to
yeah,
in anything, not just in leadership, but in anything. It's to let go of what we believe we know.
yeah, and
Yeah,
keep an open
because
mind and yeah,
the
embrace
thing
the
is,
other
how
perspective.
could you possibly know what this person's going to say? How could you
Mm,
possibly know? Oh, I just know them. I know them so
yeah,
deeply. I know what they're going to say. Well,
maybe
the
you know
number
the
of
words.
times. Well,
Yeah.
so a natural tendency we all have, and it's just curious for
Mhm,
all of us that we do it, is when we get feedback and we see a comment that maybe it is true and it really hits us, it sort of penetrates and it's whoa, that I feel that. We want to know who said that.
mhm.
we,
Yeah,
we're like,
yeah, yeah, yeah.
who said that? And people always ask me, who said that? I'm like, well, of course I can't tell you who said that because that
Mhm,
would destroy the anonymity of this process and what
mhm,
this is all about. It's about the truth. It's not about who said what. And
mhm,
I think we have a need to know and we want to digest. Now, the people that you think are really critical, that may be the one that said that comment to you, it's often not true and they often get
mhm.
it wrong. They're like, "Oh, I know
Yeah.
exactly who said that." Of course, sometimes they're right, but often they're not. And I'd just say, you know what? Let go of what you believe. And some of the most powerful feedback that I've delivered has come from somebody that actually has been quite overtly um, not a fan of that person.
Mhm,
They're like, look,
mhm,
I don't really like this person. I don't like how they operate, but here's what I want them to know, and it's really useful feedback, like really powerful feedback. So there's a couple of things that I think you should consider when thinking about who you want to have in your feedback loop.
mhm.
So
I mean that blows my mind because you're absolutely right. The power of anonymity and the power of making the goal clear. Like the goal is for this person to improve, right? So give us information that's going to help him or her improve. And that same critical person could provide super valuable feedback, even positive feedback, in
mm,
terms of, yeah, I appreciate the hard work that you're doing, but maybe our agendas are in different directions, right?
yeah,
It's the system which is causing us to have a conflict, not our personality, for example. Or on
correct,
the other
correct.
hand, you could have someone which is a big fan publicly, but hidden inside, they have a lot to say. So
Mm,
let's take a step back, go back to the 360, good and bad, effective and ineffective 360 reviews.
mm,
I had the worst 360 reviews that I've ever had personally were the ones which were part of a performance review, right? Check
mm,
the box, HR
yeah,
performance review, and usually there is a bonus attached to that performance review as well. Because, like you
yep,
said, any person would want to get that money, right? So
mm,
the amount of the money is going to overweigh the benefit of having information and improve
yeah,
yourself, right? So
yeah,
your focus naturally shifts towards meeting the scores, bringing the score higher, rather than how can I improve myself.
yeah,
And
yeah,
the best ones that I had, there's two that I really can remember really well. One of them was, I asked, it was part of a 360 review, but I asked my boss, could you specifically ask for negative feedback that can help me improve as a leader, right?
mm,
That wasn't part of the questionnaire, and she did ask for that, and it wasn't taken in a system, in an HR system. She took
yeah,
it and presented it to me in a one-on-one. And she took it in a Word document and
mm,
presented to me in a one-on-one. That was really powerful. And
yeah,
she read some things that I've said, and I could remember. It suddenly spoke. Oh yeah, I remember. I said that. I
yeah.
didn't ever imagine what an impact that would have on that person.
That's
So
it.
that was super valuable, and it was hard, but definitely helped me improve. And that kind of
Yeah.
set me up in a journey of emotional intelligence. And the second one was
Yeah.
my coach. So that Corn Ferry one, it went to my coach. I saw the results as well, but it went to
Mm,
my coach, and my coach, as you said, facilitated that and helped
mm.
unpack it. And there was a lot of emotions in me about certain stakeholders, and he took made it so valuable for me.
Yeah. Well, and then I love that because I mean, specifically the first example that you gave, that's a really powerful one. And I think what was most critical in that, why it was so powerful for you, was because you asked for it.
Hmm.
You said, I want something a bit more here. I don't just want this to be a tick and flick. It's not a process-driven exercise, and it's not about the money. I
Hmm.
actually want to know what's going on here. Like I want that feedback. So you were open, and that is 99% of whether
Hmm.
that feedback process is going to be successful for you. So I love it when people take that approach. They really are keen to embark on this self discovery process, and self discovery is what it's all about. Discover who you are, and then you'll be able to lead more effectively.
Absolutely, absolutely. Self awareness is the biggest. So let's talk a little bit about why do we have so many crap leaders?
Oh, far out. If yeah, if I had the answer to
What
that
do you think?
question,
Yeah.
then yes, I'd be a lot richer, I think. Um,
Yes.
Look, I think there's a couple of things that come into play here. Leadership is likened to status, right? If we're in a higher status role, we are typically a leader, right?
Hmm.
Status isn't given to the person that is the best sales representative on the floor. I mean, to a degree, yes, a little
Hmm.
bit maybe depends on how big the products are and how expensive they are, but the most status is usually sitting with the CEO or the MD, whoever's driving the ship, and
Hmm.
we all accept that. It's hierarchy. It's there at the top of the tree. Um,
Yes.
that I think that's a problem. It's always going to be there.
Hmm.
Authority and status
Hmm.
is just part of how we're structured as human beings. We
Yes.
seek it. We need somebody to be making that decision.
Hmm.
Now, if someone's effective and aware and seeking feedback and listening to people, I think that's great. Give that person the authority. Allow them to be
Hmm.
effective. Awesome. Often the person that's given that position of status was really, really good at their job. They were an individual contributor at some point, and they were amazing. They were a good salesperson, or technically they were brilliant. So they got attention, and then they got promoted into a leadership role because we thought, how do we reward them for being so effective? Let's give them a leadership role. Now, all of a sudden, we've taken away our best employee, sorry, who's really effective technically or as a sales rep. Now we've chucked them into a leadership role where they suck. They're no good. So we've
Hmm.
lost two opportunities to be really effective. And so that technical expertise gets thrown into leadership, and we call it the Peter principle. And
The
that's what
Peter
happens.
principle.
The Peter principle. It's what
Yeah.
happens time and time again. I see it in organizations everywhere, and
Why is
everyone.
it? Yeah. Sorry,
Why
carry
is it
on.
called the Peter principle?
Yeah, that's what I was gonna ask. Yeah.
Yeah, it's I don't know exactly why. Probably the person that created that
Was
framework
Peter.
was Peter. I should know that, but
Yeah.
I don't know. But that's what it's called. It's the Peter principle. I
Hmm.
learned it many years ago, and I've seen it time and time again, and I believe I will continue to see it because that's it's all part of our cognitive bias. If someone's
Hmm.
really good, and I've experienced it, I've been promoted based on my technical expertise. I was doing
Hmm.
something really good in my role. Oh, you should be a leader. And then I
Hmm.
didn't succeed as a leader in that particular environment. I was like,
Hmm.
wow, I
Yeah.
even I know about it, and I still succumbed to the temptation of more money and more status,
Yeah.
and I felt like I couldn't say no. So, you can be aware that that might be taking place, but it's really hard to resist because we're
Exactly.
sort of hardwired to be a leader. It's like, yes,
Yeah.
everyone wants to be the leader.
Status and power.
Um,
Absolutely.
yeah, that's it.
Very.
It's narcissism, really.
Yeah. very
Yeah.
very enticing. So
Mm,
the yeah, the person who's really good technically and then becomes a leader and not as
mm,
good in that leadership position, I think generally speaking, not always, but generally speaking, technical skills are easier to learn than people skills and leadership skills.
yeah.
uh, and apart from the learning side, there's will and willpower, or that's not the right word, so something
Mm,
internal also plays a big role, because once you're in that leadership position, there's so many temptations and so many wrong decisions to be made, and you have to be very very detailed and meticulous to make sure you're paying attention to every little thing that you say, every little decision that you make, because they have flow-on effects. And
yeah.
if you are not tedious in thinking about what could go wrong or what's the unforeseen implications of my
Mm,
words, then it's harder.
mm.
So it also needs that extra effort, which we may not be used to it as a technical person. What do you think?
Yeah, a couple of things. So I agree. There's a
Mm,
lot to it, and to be a really good leader, it takes somebody who really is conscious about what they're doing.
mm,
But I also think it's a bit of a paradox, because the harder we try at leadership, the worse we get. Right? And
mhm.
everyone's watching everything. So, that creates that self consciousness as a leader. So, if you're trying to be something, right, you're going to stuff it up. Like, it's like when, you've been practicing something and you want to show your parents, hey, look what I did.
Yeah,
And then now they're watching. Oh,
it's
I
worse.
can't do it anymore.
Yeah.
But I think that's the key. That's the key
Mhm,
when we talk about emotional intelligence, when we talk about empathy, when we talk about being able to have a really supportive, powerful conversation with somebody, sometimes even performance management, and be
mhm,
quite direct with somebody and help them realign with, hey, you need to be more better at what you're doing, or let's help you. What do you need? Those conversations take practice, and it's practice
mhm,
that leaders ignore, I'd like to say. So, no one got really effective. Let's use sport as an example. The best players at any sport, take your pick, tennis, golf, rugby league, whatever. Um, no one got really good at that by just thinking that they're good at it. They have to
mhm.
practice
Practice.
meticulously, like show up
Absolutely.
every day, have the conversations, do it over and over again until you get better. And so,
Yeah.
what happens when you do uh, be really effective in your practice is it becomes automatic, and
Yeah.
then you're not trying anymore. Like, it's not hard work. It's not you trying to be a leader. You're just automatically having the conversations. You're armed with the right skills to be able to have really effective conversations. So yeah,
Yeah.
that's
Absolutely, on the spot. So keep practicing. That's the biggest one, and bring in a little bit of a Zen or Taoism philosophy to it as well. Don't try too
mhm,
hard. Just be yourself and practice, and it's
yeah,
gonna come out. Just have good
I think so.
intentions, and yeah,
Yeah,
I'm
no,
loving it.
that's it.
Mm.
Yeah.
I think there's another factor. I'm going back to the question of what I call the crisis of leadership. That's
Mhm,
people who are high up in the hierarchy. A lot of the majority of them are not good leaders, and this is
mm,
not a recent thing. It's been going on since the beginning of time, and it will probably go on till the end of time, right? So
mhm,
another factor that I think is there, and I'm keen to hear your thoughts on it as well, is basically what Machiavelli talks about, and that's power, status, money. They're very enticing, and it comes to a point that to progress, to get that position, you may have to do something unethical, and usually the person with the lowest red line wins because they're prepared to do the things which are less unethical, or
mm,
more unethical, right?
yeah,
It's more obvious in politics, of course. Back in the
mm,
days with the kings and queens, and even now in many countries, politics is clearly a very unethical or a bad, dirty place to be, I would say. But in organizations, could also play a little bit. What do you think about that?
totally, totally. Yeah, I mean, you see it
Mm,
everywhere, and political business, it's been around forever.
mm,
People do business with people that they like, or people that they think are going to return the favor.
Mhm.
and that's what happens. People, over a handshake, over a beer, or whatever
Mhm.
it is that they're engaging in, they scratch each other's backs. And
Mhm.
look, sometimes that's actually effective.
Mhm.
Yes, there's an agreement, unspoken maybe, but it's for the right reasons.
Mhm.
Unfortunately, I think what we're talking about is that also happens for personal gain, and so people
Mhm.
are making decisions around where they spend the company's money, uh, and it's going to benefit them more than anybody else, unfortunately. So unethical behavior, I just think it has inherently negative impact on everybody. Maybe not in the moment, but at some stage that's going to catch up with everyone. And I always bring it back to, how do you want to be remembered? If you're a
Mhm.
leader, how do you want to be remembered? Do you want to be remembered as the person that was engaging in
Mhm.
lacking or unethical behavior, or that was lacking integrity, had great skills, great charisma, but wasn't being honest? Um, I certainly don't. And look, it's not easy. It's not easy,
Mhm.
right? Like you said, the temptations that exist, they're hardwired in us to be
Yeah.
the top, the number one, whatever it is. It's hard to resist power, status, and money. These are all
Yeah.
things that we seek, and it is narcissistic, and
Mhm.
and we are self-serving. We all are. If you tell yourself you're not, then you're fooling
Yes.
yourself.
Exactly.
We all have a tendency to go down that
Mhm.
path, but you know, I think to challenge it, we also, I think deep down, we all know that it's not right. Uh,
Mhm.
and look, there might be exceptions to that. I don't want to go into the psychology of it.
Yes.
Of course, there are some people that doesn't apply to them. They
Mhm.
have no sense of what's right and wrong, or it's very misaligned with the rest of
Mhm.
society. That's an exception, but
Mhm.
uh,
Yeah. So, do you want to remember as a Stalin or as a Nelson Mandela, right? Um,
indeed.
Both were charismatic, great leaders, but one was Stalin, one was Nelson Mandela. Yeah.
Well, that's it, and one did great things, and the
Mhm.
other, committed mass genocide. So,
Absolutely.
yeah, not
Absolutely.
not
So,
great.
Joe, there was a point that we parked, and I can't remember what it was. It was about psychology, which I wanted to talk
Mm.
about. What was that? Do you remember? A
Ooh,
point that you made earlier on, and we parked it.
ooh, uh, when we were talking about 360s, maybe.
Maybe
Uh,
I can't remember what it was. It was really good though.
okay.
Yeah,
Um,
I can't
yeah, I'm
remember
not
it
sure.
either.
Yeah, I'm not sure.
So let's see if there are any questions in the chat. And where is the chat? There it is. No, we don't have any questions, but we have some people saying it's great. Yeah, but no
Mm.
questions. So if anyone has a question, please submit in the next few minutes. Any final thoughts, Joe?
Yeah, I think it's a responsibility. So leadership is a responsibility. When an organization decides that they want to make you a manager or a leader, that's a
Mhm.
really big decision for the organization. So that's why the Peter Principle, I think, just question yourself. It's not okay just to put a bum on a seat. Really consider who you want to be leader, because the engagement of the team and the culture that leader then creates in that team has such a profound effect, not just on the productivity of the organization and the individual that they've got in their team, but on that person's life, right? The
Mhm.
well-being of that individual is
Yes.
at stake. So I always, when I do my workshops and I work with leaders, I always stress how important that responsibility is that they have as a leader. And so they owe it to everybody to be really conscious. And look, I'm not a fan of saying I need you to be this type of leader. I want them to be who they are, right?
Mhm.
So there's no paradox. There's no, okay, I'm trying to be this, but I'm showing up as
Mhm.
this. Let's choose who you want to be in the world.
Yeah.
And so a really simple exercise is to consider, what three words would you like people to describe you by? Right. So
Mhm.
what are those three words? And if that's too hard, like, think of a leader that you've worked for or who has been in your life. It could be even a family member, or it could be a teacher. It doesn't have to be someone in a work context. But what three words would you use to describe them? And typically, what happens is when we think of that person, that's a really good indicator of the type of leader we want to be.
Should we
And so,
do it? Do you want to ask me?
yeah, what three words would you like to be described by?
Okay. Can we go? It's hard. Can we do the other one? My
Yeah, okay.
favorite leaders. Yeah.
So what yeah, think of a leader that has had a profound positive impact on your life.
Mhm.
Could be from any walk of life.
So kind, understanding, or empathetic, same kind of thing,
Mm,
and wise.
mm, yeah.
Yeah.
And so if you were to think of those three words in relation to yourself, do you resonate with them? Is that how you want to be remembered?
Ooh,
Kind, empathetic, and wise?
definitely, definitely. And you know
Mm,
what? I don't try to go that way. That's really empowering. Because yeah, if I want to be kind, empathic, and empathetic, and wise,
mm.
why am I doing all these other stuff? It's not gonna take me there, right?
Well,
Yeah.
that's it. I mean, it helps you define what's most important to you. And this is where we go deep into purpose. And I do a lot of
Mhm,
that in the book as well. Because those three words are your synopsis of who you want to be in the
mhm,
world. And we ask people at a surface level, well, is that how I'm being experienced? Is that your experience of me? Because they're really just exposed to your behavior.
mhm,
But also there's a deeper side to your behavior as well. There's the feeling that they get when they're around you, right? And I don't know if the technology is there to assess that yet, but some people call it a spiritual feeling, and
mhm,
some people might describe it as an energy. Whatever it
mhm,
is, when we're misaligned, it just
mhm,
doesn't feel right. And people everywhere know when that doesn't feel right, right? I think we all get it intuitively. Maybe we can't describe it in the same language, but yeah, it's about
mhm,
alignment to that. So I would challenge you to, in everything that you do, consider through that lens: is it kind? Is
mhm,
it empathetic? And
mhm,
is it wise? And seek the feedback from people about their experience. And so I can
mhm.
see that, a couple of so you've got someone in there in the chat box saying that yes, you are
Oh.
kind, wise, and empathetic. So that's good feedback for you.
Great, thank
You're at
you.
least one person that agrees, yeah, which is great. Yeah,
Thank you.
have
Thanks
to
so
keep
much.
working with that.
And yeah, thank you. And thanks to Pendra for your kind comments. Yeah, you know what? I was, as you were talking about, I was thinking, and um, it all goes down to practice, right? So how am I spending my minutes and hours in
Mm,
days, right?
mm,
Am I spending them? What am I practicing? Am I practicing being kind, empathetic, and wise, or am I practicing it doing other things, right?
yeah.
And it was very empowering for me because I'm not nearly enough spending time practicing those. I am to a certain degree. I mean, it's not zero,
Mm,
but I'm spending a lot of time on other stuff, which
yeah.
probably can be most effectively used this way.
Yeah. Well, and another great question to consider is, and this helps, I think, as leaders, there's so much going on in the world, there's so many things, not enough hours in the day. What's most important to you right now? And one of the clues is what we just did, right? Kind,
Mhm,
empathetic, wise. They're the three things that are most important to you because it has the most impact on you. It makes you feel
mhm,
good. That's what should be the most important thing for you to focus on. You're
mhm.
always going to be the most important project in your world, you.
Yeah.
So to come back to those things, okay, how can I be more kind? Or if I'm
Mhm,
about to write an email, how can I, through this lens of kind, wise, empathetic, how can I actually shape that language? So it
mhm,
becomes your guide, your principles are really driven around those three elements. So it's a fast way to get you present and get you centered and aligned with who you want to be in the world. And that's conscious
mhm.
leadership. That's awareness. That's
Yes.
you
True
showing up.
perspective, right?
True perspective. Well, so true perspective is where you get feedback from somebody as you have.
Mhm,
that aligns with how you want to be in the world.
Mhm.
That's true perspective. Where it overlaps, how you're seen and experienced the way you want to
Empirical.
be seen and experienced.
Yes.
Yeah,
Validated.
validated. Yeah, because someone
Exactly.
might say, "I'm really empathetic." So
Hmm.
that's awesome. How do you know?
Hmm. Hmm.
How do you know?
Exactly.
Oh, I just know. I just am. I can
Yeah.
feel it. It's like, yeah, you may
Hmm.
feel it all day long, but unless somebody feeds that back to you at some point,
Yes.
you're never going to know. You can only
Yes.
guess. You can
Yes.
only want.
Absolutely, Joe. Absolutely. Now, any final thoughts before we end? Anything we left out you
Uh,
wanted to talk about?
Not really. No, I
Mhm.
just think I think we've touched on it. I think yeah, it's been a great conversation. It's been interesting. I love talking about all this stuff. So no, thank you for the opportunity, and yeah, it's been great to chat.
Great. Thank you so much, Joe. It was a pleasure to have you here. And thanks everyone for watching. Now, if you're watching this on LinkedIn or Facebook, please make sure you subscribe to our YouTube channel as well, please. I'm trying to increase the number of subscribers as much as possible. So yeah, and you get notified whenever we go live or if I post a video on YouTube, which is not on LinkedIn or Facebook too. Thank you so much and enjoy the rest of your day. Bye.
Awesome.